the opportunity to talk exclusively with the man who performed that polygraph test on Richard Levitt.
That's right, and he is widely considered one of the top polygraphers in the country. And if you thought a polygraph is not admissible in court or that it's pseudoscience, Charles Huntz will tell you it has had a big impact on big cases and is more common than you ever thought. The attorney for Richard Levitt says the polygraph he passed should hold enough weight to at least stay the execution. I asked the man who performed that test if the mere concept is feasible. Could you see a case where it could reach that level?
I could, certainly. And in fact, we see that sometimes in New Mexico, where testimony about a polygraph in a case that otherwise is weak with physical evidence, it looks like that the polygraph made a big difference at trial.
Dr. Charles Huntz has been doing polygraphs since 1976. The psychology professor has published in the Law Review, even written for the U.S. Supreme Court on the issue. He's highly sought after in big cases, and he says polygraphs are everywhere.
Every police department in the United States of any size, they say a city of 25 or 30,000 or bigger, has a polygraph examiner on staff full time.
He says police use polygraphs daily to weed out suspects. And if you want to work for your federal government, you'll likely take one, especially if it's in law enforcement.
If you want to go to work for FBI or CIA or NSA or any of those alphabet agencies, you will take a polygraph, in some cases more than one.
So if it's good enough for the CIA, why not the courts? Hunt says in many cases it is.
New Mexico, I think, is an excellent example. Polygraphs have been admissible in New Mexico since 1978. They have a strong evidentiary rule. One of the things it requires is that it has to be recorded.
He says judges know when polygraphs are done properly, so long as they can view the recording. In Idaho, polygraphs are admissible in sentencing hearings. Hunt says an example of how it can play a big role is the sentencing of the British au pair Denise Woodward, who killed a child in 1997.
And although we didn't testify at trial, there were extensive hearings before the judge, and I really think the polygraph had an impact upon the judge, and that the judge believed she was in fact innocent.
So in a case like Levitt's, where the prosecutor admits his case is almost completely circumstantial, it is conceivable that a polygraph done by one of the foremost experts in the country could have an impact. Hunt says you can beat a polygraph. A lot of people ask that question, but it takes serious training to know how to throw a test off. And he says there's no scientific evidence that someone who is on drugs or someone who's psychotic has ever passed a polygraph. In fact, just the opposite. He says that Ted Bundy, who was a mass murderer, of course, was highly intelligent, could not pass a polygraph.
Fascinating. So also tonight, this